Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our regular council meeting. It's not our regular evening of our council meeting, but we had some business that we had to wait a little bit longer to get going, and we decided to move the date till tonight. The first thing I want to do is call the meeting to order. And I guess as we all know, the town of Yarmouth has had an unfortunate loss of one of their councillors, Jim MacLeod. He's been a long-time councillor for sure, and he lost his battle to cancer in the last couple of weeks here. So Jim was a pillar of the town of Yarmouth, there's no doubt, a true gentleman, and he was known and liked by anybody who had the pleasure of meeting this man. He was a great councillor and a great gentleman for sure. So I think it's only fitting that we observe a moment of silence in respect of for Jim and his family and anybody who knew him. So if you will, please join me for a moment of silence in Jim's name. Thank you. Okay, you all have an agenda that you see. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Anybody have anything to add? Seeing none, I'd like a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Surratt, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. Conflict of interest, does anybody have a conflict of interest in any of the items that's on the agenda? You can declare now, or if we come to an item that you feel you should be declaring, you can do it at that time as well. But if anybody has anything now, they can do it now as well. Seeing none, we have a presentation, and it's Jared Dalziel. It's Jared from WSP, and its presentation on the land use bylaw and the municipal planning strategy, housekeeping amendments and development agreements review. And I will pass the meeting to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor. So just to start off, just so we've got 2 development agreement applications and then some housekeeping amendments to the municipal plan and land use bylaw. The 2 applications are both for development agreements, which is just for the councillors that weren't at Planning Advisory Committee this afternoon, and for the public joining us over Facebook. It's essentially a contract that gets placed on title. That's a way of regulating land use aside from just what we call typically an as-of-right application through a zoning bylaw. So let's you do additional things in there. You can regulate like hours of operation, and there's additional provisions you can do for things like noise and so on and so forth. So it's these 2 applications that we're going to talk to you about initially are both for development agreements. They have a very similar public engagement process, and we'll get into them at the moment. So I'll share a screen here. Okay. So the first is for a marine aquaculture use by the Maritime Oyster Company in Eelbrook. The site's zoned coastal community, or CC. The property's about an acre, and it's a bit of a funny shape. It's about 125 meters of frontage and just the area shown in red here. Really, the application is for a shipping container to actually be placed on the property, which would be kind of an interim location for the grading of oysters, where there'd actually be aquaculture happening on Eel Lake to be taken back, graded, and then go to Westport to be processed. So it's really just a transfer location and a boat launch location for the property owner for the actual activity taking part on Eel Lake, which is aquaculture is a provincial mandate when it's actually on the water like that. It's not like a land-based system. However, we still do regulate kind of the land uses associated with that. In this case, it would be the shipping container and then the parking and so on. So there's a development agreement proposed for this use. Really, we're regulating it just so it would be for the shipping container and maybe like a second one in the future, and then the additional parking that they'd need to deal with the in and out of boats on the property. There's an enabling policy, which is 3.37 in the municipal plan to enable this to take place. And an aquaculture use in this zone needs this development agreement to kind of proceed forward. In terms of public engagement, there's a sign placed on the property at the moment. There was an ad placed in the Vanguard previously, and will be, when this proceeds to a public hearing, which is really the opportunity to hear in a formal setting for the public about their thoughts, feelings, and possible improvements for the application. There'll be a mail out to all property owners within 152 meters of the property. And then we'd love to get any comments back in kind of the interim from the public. If they have any thoughts, concerns, questions kind of prior to the public hearing, because that's really the formal yes, no decision, like right before it goes to council. So for the next one, we have another development agreement by Boats Keg Distilling Company and Middle West Pubnico. This is the property in red here off of Chemin de Pont-de-Marais. Split zoned light industrial and coastal wetland zone. So the coastal wetland zone is used on basically if you had a portion of a property that's now become underwater. It's like under the high water mark essentially. So people may recall, a number of councillors likely will recall there's an application on this property before we did the new community plan. To rezone it to light industrial zone to permit the distilling use in the property, which is still permitted. So this application is just for the patio use to be used past 9 p.m. And I'll bring up the site plan here in a moment. You just saw in the aerial a moment ago, there was 4 buildings. One of them's already been removed. It's a bit of an older aerial image. Another one's proposed to be removed. And then the existing building on the southeastern part of the property would have the patio use attached to it. So that's kind of this hatched area here. And just for context, the embankment on the property where the coastal wetland zone begins is shown in this hatched kind of dashed line here. This application is enabled by policy 4.5.11 of the municipal plan, which is really just something that lets council be able to consider this application without requiring what's called a municipal planning strategy amendment, which is a bit more of an involved process. So really, there's a number of terms proposed in this development agreement, regulating the times that it would be appropriate to operate, when live music would be appropriate, and a number of provisions dealing with kind of like basically nuisance clauses to ensure that the use continues in a manner that's sensitive to the abutting and neighboring landowners that are a lot of residential uses. There's also a clause in this proposed development agreement, which will still be subject to change prior to final approval, that any development permit which is issued like for that patio use could actually be revoked if there's not compliance with things like noise or so on. And also the development agreement itself can be removed from the property by council if there is not compliance with noise and issues that kind of continually arise. And these things do carry with title. So while there isn't necessarily like maybe a problem with the present use of the land, it can change over time in the next 40 or so years, right? So it's really the idea with having some of this language in there is for quite a long-term view on these properties. Similarly, public engagement will be similar to the last one. So mailouts will be eventually going to public hearing. And then that's following the final decision past that. Now for the housekeeping amendments, maybe we'll take a moment if there's any questions from councillors as well. If you
Does anybody have any questions? If I can, I can't see everybody, so please.
Oh yeah, I'll stop sharing.
Okay. Councillor Surratt.
Hi, Jared. Jared, couple of small questions. Can we have the Vanguard was the mode of to put it on for the people to be able to see it? Can we get that on the Facebook page of the Municipality of Argyle also?
Yep, certainly can.
Okay. Question one, and question two, Jared. Something that I'm probably not understanding properly on the bootleg or bootskeg, whatever. I'm not sure how you bootskeg, whatever.
Bootskeg, I think.
Says,
yeah.
Okay, bootleg, bootskeg. It says 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. Yep. I'm a little confused if they're allowed. They're not allowed to 9 a.m. and to the middle of the night. So why is the recommendation from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m.?
So it's a bit of how the land use bylaw is worded. So how the land use bylaw is worded now is essentially anything is permitted between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. to operate if you have like a restaurant or like a lounge patio or anything like that. So it's really the category of use. They're not expected to operate till like 4 a.m. But that's kind of the category of land use that gets assigned to it through the land use bylaw. So we'd likely be looking at like a midnight kind of end time, which could extend out for special events. Or I think I have some provisions in there for following like Canada Day and New Year's, because those tend to be quite popular times. We might go to like 1 or 2, right? So that's kind of that's why it's kind of worded that way with the some of those motions. But the actual text of the development agreement has the proposed development agreement, at least the draft of it. The hours typically would end at midnight, and then there'd be some opportunity until like 2 a.m. or later. There's still a bit of kind of working out what we'll do with the language there.
Thank you. Oh, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none. Jared, do you want us? No, we'll deal with these probably. No, we can deal with these now, or do you want to just continue with your other one?
I'll continue with the other one. We can just do all the motions, I think, in one go. It's just get through these ones. Let's see. Here you go. So this is for housekeeping amendments to the municipal plan and land use bylaw. So we did the updated municipal plan about a year ago. Whenever we do one of these like larger reviews of the municipal plan and zoning bylaw, there's so many changes that get made that normally there's a couple things that either will be unclear or something will be omitted, or there's basically a change in the market that would maybe necessitate adding some extra language in to make things clearer. So really what we're planning to do with these is to do those minor changes, and I'll kind of walk you through them in terms of the each of the kind of the categories of changes that are proposed. The first being changes to the campground regulations. The reason kind of the rationale for these changes on this end of things, the land use bylaw, is there was a number of provincial requirements that existed previously under the tourist accommodation regulations, if I'm recalling correctly. So that would provide requirements for things like civic addressing and emergency access if you had a campground. That has actually been rescinded by the province, and it's now on local municipalities essentially to have requirements in land use bylaws to be able to deal with those matters. And we've had a number of inquiries, or at least interest from the public about campgrounds. So there's a set of requirements that are proposed to be put into the land use bylaw to clarify those, some changes to the definitions to make it clear about what a campground is. It's not like a year-round residence or what have you, right? So there's really some matters in there to kind of provide some parameters for the development of campgrounds, and those could also be varied through a development agreement that would go to Planning Advisory Committee and Council. If someone was kind of interested in doing a campground that didn't conform with that, I call it the cookie cutter guidelines we have in the land use bylaw as kind of a standard practice piece. So fur farms is a bit of an error correction in the zoning bylaw for these. So the municipal plan actually lists that these should be happening through a development agreement application. However, there's a number of existing ones that have existed in the municipality for quite some time that would still be permitted to be as of right if they're continuing to operate as of like the date of when this plan was adopted. So this is really a change that would be council could consider them on a case-by-case basis in new sites through a development agreement process or a contract zone essentially that gets applied on the property. Those ones. There's another small change. It's to add automotive mechanical repair as a permitted use in the marine industrial zone. Really, the intent of that marine industrial zone is that you'll have a number of uses that benefit by co-location to like wharves and close access to the water. However, within that zone, there's a number of uses that basically operate as service uses for those industrial properties. And there's been a request to have this added in, which staff agree with. There's a number of like trucking and kind of export uses that get associated with those marine industrial zone uses. And we feel that having a automotive repair use added to that makes a lot of sense. And it would help service a lot of the trucks that are kind of coming in and out of those areas. There's also some minor changes to the municipal planning strategy, just some like typo corrections, things like that, as well as there was a provision originally in the municipal plan that notification costs would be borne by applicants. We're actually going to kind of a larger process underway to deal with costing in the municipality. So we're proposing to take this out and it would kind of get integrated into that overall component. However, it's for our actual mailouts that we've been doing so far, the cost is so minor, it actually would probably be more effort to actually administer requiring the costing for it than it is to actually recoup anything. So this would also follow the similar kind of process that we have going on for the other applications. So it'll be a public notification process. The reports are up on the web at the moment, and we'll be notifying the public via newspaper ad in this case. There's no mail out specifically for the housekeeping amendments because it's not a site-specific application. Those other two development agreements we spoke to earlier do have those as part of the notification piece, which also gets kind of carried forward to the Facebook page as well. So that is it for the housekeeping amendments. Can pull up the recommended motions.
Okay, any questions on that one? So the planning advisory met this afternoon with these, and the recommendation from the committee is that to recommend that the motion be that we start this process. This has to be passed at this meeting here by council. So in the first one with the oyster one, it was really what we're recommending is that to give first reading to consider approval of the proposed development agreement as contained in attachment A of this report, and to allow for marine related aquaculture use on that PID number 9011032, and to proceed to a public hearing without second meeting of planning advisory committee unless substantial comments are received from the public, and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing for the application. And again, this is just a process. It's a motion to kind of start the process. Once we have all this, there's a process to follow, and once we have all these done, then they'll come back to council for approval. So I guess what we need is a motion to that effect. Moved by Councillor Dicton, seconded by Councillor Saunier. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll ask for the question. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded? Carried. That's for that one. The other one is basically the same thing. It needs to go, it follows basically the same process. And I guess we need a motion to, and again, recommendation on all of these were from the recommendation was to bring this for approval from council. So that's basically for that one as well. So we'd need a motion to move by Councillor Surratt, seconded by Councillor Dalziel. Any question? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. Now the next one is not as it's not as complicated as this one here, but we still have to publish and let people know that this is taking place though. So again, it's still not to approve them, it's just to approve to go through the process so that it can come back to council. So we need a motion on that one as well. Moved by Councillor Albright, seconded by Councillor Bork. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. Jared, thank you very much. Do you have anything else to add to this, or this is basically what your presentation was?
Yeah, that's basically the presentation. If there are any kind of questions or someone from the public, Ailey will be typically handling those, and we'll kind of filter through, and her and I can discuss. It's always better, in my opinion, especially for development agreements, if there are kind of questions or concerns for the public, it's always very good to have those early. And when we go to the public hearing, we have an updated development agreement with those kind of concerns in mind, right? So it is a contract, like there's agreement clauses kind of get written into it. And that kind of comment and question from the public lets us do that the best way we can.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jared, for the work that you do, and appreciate it. So, and the presentation. Okay, we'll continue on. The next item is adoption of minutes. We have the regular council meeting of June the 8th. You've all had a chance to look at that. Are there any changes or I guess we need an approval unless there's anything. Okay, moved by Councillor Albright, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. Business arising from the minutes. There's none here marked. Councillors report. Anybody who needs, who wants to give a report as councillors, just you can go in whatever order. Councillor Albright.
Thank you, Warden. Okay, I'll start with the Mariner Center Steering Committee. We've been meeting every week for the last couple of months. And I guess to sum it up, just so everybody's aware, we have submitted the application. The deadline was on July 6th and the application did go in, and we feel like we have a strong application. So we're not sure when we'll hear, but as soon as we hear anything, that I'll definitely be letting you know. I'll be sharing that with you. Also, Mariners on Main, I'm sure that you've seen that there's water in the pool right now. So water's in the pool, and that was done early to ensure that everything is okay. It was regrouted and there's no leaks and things are going well. And right now they're working on programming. They're working on hiring some more staff, and we still are on target for a September opening for Mariners on Main. Doctor recruitment, COVID has made it a little bit difficult for recruitment and retention. It's made it a bit more challenging. The community navigator, Rebecca Cassidy, made a presentation at our last meeting, and she's going to be coming to council to make a presentation, basically to give you figures as to what's happened in the last year. But it's better and better all the time, and it's promising. Housing is a big issue for the new doctors coming in. It continues to be an issue. We know that housing is an issue all over. On July 1st, I attended 2 walks in honor of the children who passed away in the residential schools. I attended one in Tuscan, and I attended one in the town of Yarmouth, and both were very, very well done. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to participate in those. Just want to touch on a few things for recreation. We haven't really had a meeting per se, but I kind of keep in communication with Scott and Jeanette. So day camp has started, soccer has started, baseball has started. Regulations, things keep changing because of COVID, because of the phases, but and they're doing the best that they can to adapt to the changes. Right now, day camp is always the big one, and right now they're taking up to 25 children in each day camp. Typically, they could take a little bit more, but we have to keep in mind, we usually have 4 staff members at each day camp, but because of COVID and not knowing how things are going to go, there's only 3 staff at each day camp. So there has to be a certain number of ratio of workers per children. So they're up to potentially taking 25 people. The Glenwood volleyball court and our project that's going on there, we are currently in the process of having a firm do an archaeological dig to make sure that everything is okay there before we can move forward with that. Hopefully it'll be done by this month so that we'll have some answers to be able to move forward. Walking was one surveyed to be the most popular form of exercise in our municipality. So there have been some walking groups that have started in our municipality every Thursday night at 6:30. There's one in East Pubnico, there's one now in Wedgeport, and there's one in Tusket. And it happens every week. It's for an hour on the trails. And I think that is everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Albright. Anybody else? Councillor Surratt.
Just to mention that the regular meetings and Mariner Center, like Deputy Warden Albright said, that those, and just probably the big one I want to speak on is the Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission. We had David Belfontaine, a facilitator who's been involved in a lot of the wharfs and all across Nova Scotia, having a meeting with the board of the Industrial Commission about maybe changing over the running of the wharfs and the school board building in Yarmouth, the 3 wharfs, Lobster Rock Wharf, the Marginal Wharf, and the Public Wharf, and changing that over to entrepreneurs or business people and local fishers. And I think it's something that, I mean, I'm on the board, and there's 2 others here, Kathy and Richard, that's on the board. But I believe it's something we have to really think about, because it's going to involve, if this board takes over, this new board, to run the wharves and the school board building, there could be lots of money involved to do the repairs on these wharfs and that. And I know, as being on the board, you're supposed to kind of be in favor of the board or the committee you're on. But on the other side, it's big money. In the Municipality of Argyle, we have plenty of wharfs, and I know Richard has brought this up many times. Richard Donaldson, Councillor Donaldson, about us paying for wharfs in the town. So I think it's something we'll have certainly to look at, what the ramifications are going to be, and what it would cost the Municipality of Argyle as our share on these projects. It's for sure we'll be looking at grant money from the feds or possibly the province. But anyhow, I just want to make this council aware of what's going on, and this may be coming down the pipe September, October, November this year. So it's something for us to keep an eye on. How do we work with it, around it, what our options are. I just wanted to let everybody know. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Surratt. Anybody else? Okay. The next item is my report. It's there's an attachment. That's not on the report. I attended the opening of CFest last night. It was nice to see people being able to gather a little more than what we were used to. And one thing, and we made a comment, like I was there with Mayor Mood, and that's a first, I think, public event that we've been able to be there in person, and it felt nice. It would be good when we can start doing that again, for sure, you know. And again, something else, and I took part in one of the walks that Deputy Warden was saying, the one in Tuscany. I didn't attend the one in, but it was a good. It was an honor to be able to do that on behalf and in respect for these children, for sure. Next is the staff report, and I will pass that on to our CAO.
I almost did the muted. I almost got the you're muted. Yeah, so I'm not muted, thankfully, or unfortunately for you. The staff report, I'm just going to go hit the high level items here. Just a lot of people ask about the building. Yes, we are occupying the building. The building belongs to us. We just received the paving of the second layer of the parking area there. That is now available for the public. We had to close down public access for 2 days, actually, until that cured. And excuse me, they were still able to access our building, but they weren't able to drive into the parking area, just to be clear. And so the lines will be painted this weekend, weather permitting, and so that'll show us exactly how many spaces we have. Noise reduction, absorption, 4 major areas. Like we still have to fill rooms and put up artwork, and our priority has been to clean our own offices, and so that's happening. And we have ordered additional things that we need for the building, and now that we're in it, we have a much better idea of what we need or what's missing. We do have, you know, minor things that are happening that are being adjusted and fixed as we come along. We are under budget, and we will be under budget before this is done. So the all-in budget, in engineers and architects and project management and the actual construction, is 4.215 million. So that was approved by council a while back. I don't have a solid number right now because we're still considering some changes and adjustments. But at this point, we will be well over 100,000 below budget. So I should also indicate that the original budget did not contemplate the storage building. The original budget only contemplated the movement of the building. So what we managed to do is we managed to do a lot more work on the storage building. So when I say we're 100,000 below budget, I'm not including that work. So if I was to take that work and show it separate, it would be closer to 200,000. So we're very pleased with that. We're pleased with the project management, and you know, and quite frankly, you know, a lot of the staff here picked up their own time and energy to do things like move management and other things. So we've been very cost conscious. Obviously, this is a big deal. This is the first time we've ever done a building like this in the history of the municipality. So we're very pleased with the product, and we're only seeing the potential of the property. So one of the major things that hasn't been finished, unfortunately, is the audio-visual component of the council chambers. So this is one of the reasons why we're meeting via Zoom. The other reason is that it has been quite a convenient way to meet, especially when people are out of town. So anyway, so we're hoping that work will be done in August and will be ready for your September. Should be absolutely ready for your September meeting. So your first September regular council should be here. So there's some other priorities that of course with the move, like obviously the priority was the move. So some things had to, you know, we still operated our business, but some of the strategic planning stuff had to be set aside so that we could do this move. So now we're settling in. We're now refocusing our ongoing work on strategy. Also, it looks like COVID is we're on phase 4 now. So that's, you know, that obviously has an impact on how we do business. And I'll say that, you know, nothing significant to report on things like housing and, you know, fishing dispute, rural internet. Those things are are carrying on as they are carrying on. The Mariner Center expansion, I'm not going to repeat what the chair has said, but my report has my version of that. And the Airport Corporation, again, where Celtic Air is continuing to do their work. They're proposing rate increases and adjustments. And I have assisted with the audit and the year-end accounting work to set them up for the auditors to do their work. Westport Wastewater project, this is one that I want to make clear that we are in delay. So, and this is due just to our environment of like post-COVID crazy. It's the market right now to get a geotech and to get all of the experts to come in and do the work that they need to do in order to have the construction completed. That's not going to be available until at least October of 2021, which means that there's no construction this fall. The construction will be in the spring of 2022, and I expect it to be completed into the late spring, early summer, depending on availability of contractors. So, we do set project deadlines and we set expectations, but we're at the mercy of the market, essentially. The other thing that our engineers were very clever to point out is that it's probably the worst time to go out and do tender. Everybody is flat out busy. So next year, hopefully the post-COVID catch up will have calmed a little bit, and going out to market early in the year has always done us better as opposed to the middle of a construction season, right? So it's pretty insane out there right now from a construction perspective, and we're now starting to see the prices come down in lumber, which is all good and positive. It's maybe a new normal. We have 2 ACOA funding applications we'll be submitting. One is for the Hibson Bridge and the other is for trails. And I will actually ask for a little bit of advice here from council, because in doing 2 applications, we have to pick the one we want the most. And what I have is a bit of a conflicting information here. One is that at our recent priority setting session, we had identified the trails were higher on the list potentially, but on the flip side, trails do generate other options for funding, whereas the Hibson Bridge project may not have another funding opportunity. I don't know that, but the funding opportunities surrounding the Hibson Bridge may not be. Well, let's just say we can't use gas tax for Hibson Bridge, for instance, just as a for example. So I will, perhaps at the end of the report, just I know it's a little outside of normal to kind of like add it to an agenda, but I think it has, because it is in our staff report, I think it might be appropriate still to have that discussion, just briefly, a little bit of direction so that I'm actually, when I tick the box on number 1 and number 2, that I'm actually representing what you want rather than what I think you might want based on conflicting info. So a couple of work that's coming up that involves myself primarily is the Municipal Innovation Program. We received $60,000 for an innovation program. So that's to create a regional planning organization. So we've received the go-ahead, and I'm going to so I'll be involved with the other 2 CAOs to set up the request for proposal. We'll have to engage a third party to help us with the development of this, and I'm not shy about like totally wanting Jared to be the new regional director of Southwest Nova, because he's awesome. Anyway, but that was just a plug for him. But anyway, this is a process that's going to take a while. It's not going to happen overnight. So I do have involvement as well with some of the REN related projects on heat recovery, and some of you have been involved with some of these meetings where we've applied for funding, and so most of that is in the feasibility study mode. So it's not something that's going to happen instantly. The rest of the report, you know, staff has prepared and diligently, and I'm just scrolling to see what parts I didn't actually discuss. One of the things I would note that as well relating to this project, the road of J.E. Hatfield Court will receive a second coat of pave later in the year. They're coordinating with the contractors that are building the Conrad Hilbert LeBlanc building. They don't want to put a second layer until some of the heavy machinery has completed its work, so as to not interfere. And at the end of the day, you know, we are extending the pave partially due to that development. So we're going to do it in collaboration with when they're able to go there. So that just makes sense. So in a future meeting, what I'm likely going to bring to council is what next. So we have about another 300 meters that we could go on a public road. Not to suggest that we're going to put a paved road in, but there is an opportunity that we will eventually have to look at as a council, depending on how aggressive you want to be around the development side of things. So that'll be for a future meeting. I would say that that was a long summary. If there are any questions on my portion of the staff report or the staff report in particular, let me know. I will say that later on the agenda, there is an item for approval that is the terms of reference for the Mariner Center Expansion Committee. And so part of that terms of reference requires, because the chair is Madam Albright, we require the support of that committee to be in the Municipality of Argyle. And I can assure you, it's a lot easier from a coordination perspective when you have the staff and council being in the same place. So Kim Rowley will be doing that work, and she's transitioning into that role soon. She participated in the first meeting, but she still hasn't done one meeting yet on her own. I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. So I guess add any questions, number one, and then number two, a little bit of guidance on the application for a co-offender.
Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, short questions, short answers. The video sound system, looking forward to meeting in person, but everybody can't always be there in person under the new system. Will we be able to join the meetings remotely into the live meeting?
The answer is that will depend on you. The MGA recently was amended to allow for virtual meetings. So, and we can do that, but we have to do that by policy. So
Okay.
not established a policy yet. I'm kind of waiting for AMA to get a model policy out so that I can steal from them. But there are other municipalities that are a little bit more ahead of us because it was something that they talked about earlier. So the short answer is yes, but I don't know exactly what that looks like. I can tell you that the audio visual will allow both to happen. So if the MGA allows this to happen, we can have Councillor Donaldson in his house and everybody else around the table. But the rest of council has to be okay with that. They have to agree that this is an appropriate venue and an appropriate way.
My thought on that was Calvin steaming in from lobster fishing, as an example, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are things that you can do to kind of like, if you have concerns about how that works, you can put in policy what things are allowed and what things aren't. Like, you know, some of the common, I will be short on this. Some of the common things that people raise is like things like in camera, right? Like, so in camera, it's like, you know, you're all in the same room and you're in a private place, but then if you're at home, you might, you know, people might be concerned that there might be a way for somebody to pick up on an in-camera conversation, right? So those things you need to raise them as a council, and then we can put them in policy to kind of do our best to alleviate those concerns.
Okay, thank you. One more question, quick one.
Mhm.
The paving extension of 200 meters, do you have a time frame on that? That was a question that was actually posed to me a couple days ago.
It looks like it's going to be late summer, early fall, but again, we'll coordinate with the contractor that's building. If we can do it earlier, we will do it earlier, but Aberdeen, like we hoped that they would do it all at the same time, but because some of the construction is still happening, that's why it wasn't done at the same time. Plus the weather was not the best for paving this week, so.
Okay, thank you. And
Yep.
your next segment, we're going to talk about.
Okay, are you,
Councillor Woodrow has his hand.
yeah, Councillor Woodrow, yeah. No, I was just making sure that Councillor Donaldson was done. Okay, Councillor Woodrow.
And thank you, Warden. I talked to Hans about, I don't know, probably a week or so about the wastewater, and he told me he was still talking to the province. Is it final, like they won't be doing any work this year?
Yes, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make that. I just want to make that clear so I can tell the residents.
Yes, it is, and I think what Hans was referring to was that we have to tell the province that our funding requests will be delayed.
Yeah.
Not have any concerns about that. The funding extends well beyond 2022, so it's just basically what you have to do with the province is tell them what you think you're going to be doing, and if there's any change, they're typically quite flexible. So that's where Hans is referring to, where he had to talk to the province, which we have done.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Surratt.
I see, Alain, that you've got the Yarmouth Industrial Commission on your report, and I just want to put a plug in that I forgot to mention when I was speaking. A staff report, not staff report, but councillor's report. It's I was very surprised. David Bellefontaine, and Alain, you were there, told us that this is for all councillors and the people listening. 21.8% of all fisheries landed in Nova Scotia are done in Yarmouth, and this does not include Publico and Westport. 21.8%. That's a huge number, and let's face it, guys and girls, it affects all of our communities. I don't know if Alain remembers the millions of dollars the whole 100% is, but it's in the millions and millions of dollars. So putting a plug in, there's a lot of stuff going on, which I didn't realize. Thank you.
They measured the economic spin-off of landing at that location at well over $150 million a year. And I suspect that Dennis Point is larger.
Yeah.
but I don't know. I suspect to use Yarmouth Bar too is for those figures. Because there's no way that those numbers are that big for that little area in downtown Yarmouth. So those numbers, I don't agree with those numbers. I don't know where, I'd like to know where he got them.
Richard, I'll challenge you on that. Challenge you from what he said. He said this, I understood it was from the three wharfs that landed in Yarmouth, and these were from the federal and provincial numbers. But again, this is what he said.
Yeah.
I should clarify, councillors, that the 150 million represents economic spin-off. What I should have said was it's multiplied by 3 when you consider the landing. So the landing, they're estimating at 1/3 of that, but every time you land, they triple the impact because there's trucking, there's this, there's that, there's everything, right? So I should clarify that 150 doesn't represent landing revenue, it represents spin-off in total.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody else? Councillor Woodrow, you have your hand, but that's just, okay. I thought maybe you had another question. That's not a problem. But if there's no other questions, thank you for the report to our CAO, and we move on for decision. And 10A is the flag policy. We had our first reading at the last meeting, and I guess now, oh, did you have something, Councillor Bohr? No?
Do we have to make a decision on the ACOA now, or do we make that later on down?
And my concern would be that if I don't get guidance from you now, that I won't get it before the deadline. So I guess all I would say is this, okay? I think that when we measured the projects in terms of priority, we measured the trails ahead of the Hipson Bridge. That the most recent information, that's what I have. However, I guess from the perspective of all these things appear to change when the funding models come in, because when the funding models allow you to do things that they typically don't allow you to do, you might reconsider applying for something, even if it isn't the number one, because it's unlikely you're going to get money in any other funding model. So both projects can be applied for. We know the cost of the Hipson project and it's good to go. The trail project is easy because what we're doing is we're just redoing a kilometer at a time, and depending on how much money we get, we'll do more or less kilometers, right? So it's how fast do you want, you know, the kilometers of trail to be fixed. I think if we ask the community and we say like the East Pumlico Trail needs to be fixed, they'll say yes, and that's where we would start. By the way, it would be East Pumlico because that's the worst section, and then the Hipson Bridge being a little less impactful to the community because I think it's clear the community uses the trails more than they would use the bridge. However, the trail can attract gas tax funding, and this particular opportunity, most ACOA funding would never pay for a Hipson Bridge project. So with that information, does it change your decision, I guess is what I'm asking. We don't necessarily need to have that decision today, but before we submit, which the deadline is next Friday, we would need to understand what council's thoughts were on that. At the end of the day, we might say Hipson's 1 and trail is 2, but ACOA might disagree anyway. They might say, actually, we just want to do the trail. So it's not like critical that we get it right. I just need direction, because otherwise I just feel like there's new information and I feel like you made that decision in a vacuum without that information, which is why I'm raising it.
Okay, what, Councillor Sonia, you had something?
Yes, thank you, Warden. It's funny, I had questions about the Hipson Bridge myself, but you've just expanded my thoughts here. The Hipson Bridge, does it deteriorate in time? Therefore, would it be not, if it does deteriorate, would it be not a priority over the trails? That was my number one question. Second, is it not a destination in itself, historically and architecturally?
Yes.
Okay. So again, to my question, does it deteriorate? Does it need fixing, or can it wait?
It is deteriorating. It does not require immediate repair. However, I mean, the project has really two components. It has a visual component and it has a structural component. So if you wanted to reset the structure of Hipson Bridge and make it look different, probably cheaper to do that because you wouldn't have to restore the original look. But I think the project is approximately 280,000, and that number is a little old. So count on 300 probably to do the whole thing top to bottom, structural and visual. Now that would maintain that bridge for 50 odd years. I don't know the exact useful life, but clearly it wouldn't be something that lasted 10 years. It would be something that would last a tremendous amount of time. So it has the destination feel, and we actually don't have a lot of associated infrastructure around it. We could, in theory, if that was the will of council, improve that location and make it even more attractive to tourists or to local. But yeah, so there's really two major components associated with that project. It will be in or around 300. The trails is the ask would be a minimum of 100, but we would probably, we would put in a project of approximately 200,000, of which we would hope to get 50%. So in that case, we can use gas tax and the ACOA money. In the Hibson Bridge case, we can only use our capital reserve money to offset the other side.
What about historical? Is there any money for the Historical Society?
No, it has historical significance, but it does not have the kind of designation that you might expect from a location. So it has historical local significance, but it's not a registered heritage property in any way.
Thank you.
Councillor Surratt.
Sorry about that, having trouble with the mute. I'd just like to say, speaking back like Councillor Sonia said, this is only one of 2 bridges in this province that were made like that. And you know what, this has been on the back burner for us for a long, long time. I believe that this structure can, you know, for all of Argyle, a lot of people, if it was built up, fixed up, a lot of people would possibly go there. We put it on our Facebook page, but we got to repair it first. This has been on the back burner long enough, and I believe that it's time for us to do something about it. This is my opinion, just my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Councillor Bork.
Yes, I agree with Guy. This has been on the back burner for a long time. I think since I've been in council, so it's been a good 13 years that I've been harping on this. And we had said that we would fix it or whatever we could do with it. And it is one of the oldest, I don't know if in the province or in the country, I'm not sure which one. Anyway, and that is a place right now that a lot of tourists stop. You see campers stopping overnight there. There's all the time. There's people that stop there in the tourist season. Even truckers, I know, to stop there. So it's a good place it's a good tourist place. So, and people do go swimming there in the brook, and they go kayaking as well. So it'd be a good place where you can probably put your kayak if you're high tide. So I think this Hibson Bridge has been asked by the community to get fixed. They keep asking me all the time, when is it going to get fixed? I thought it was going to get fixed. Where's the money coming in? It's something that's been asked all the time. So I think it's time that this year gets done. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I just back up what everyone else has been saying as far as the Hibson Bridge. I know I talk to a lot of people in East Pubnico as well, and they do talk about the Hibson Bridge quite often and wondering what council's going to end up doing about it. And I believe here we've got a chance to at least apply for some money to help us out to fix it. Not saying we'll get it, but at the same time we have to take that step and apply, I think anyway, and go from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? I have a question. So if we put in applications, are we putting in for both or just for one? We still put in for both. We just indicate which one is the priority for us. Is that correct?
That's correct. They're both in, and we could pick priority 1, and ACOA may still go with priority 2.
Right.
So what I'm hearing from this council is that you want the Hibson application to be number 1 based on the new information, and that's all I really need. And
Okay.
so it doesn't guarantee that the project's going to happen. It doesn't guarantee that we're going to get money for one or the other, actually. But
Right.
you know, we committed ourselves to the project, but we also committed ourselves that we would cost share.
Yes.
So to the residents of East Pubnico, it's if we can cost share, we'll do it. Right. That's often the case with capital projects. Is for trails as well, right, or any other project that we do. So so that's the reason for the delay. Certainly not a lack of commitment, just a lack of funding assistance.
Right. And another question is, you mentioned that we can use gas tax for the trails, which I know. if we were to get a grant, an ECOA grant, can we still use the gas tax? Can we?
That's an excellent question, because a lot of times federal funding is non,
Use both.
but this is a stackable funding. So if it is a gas tax eligible, which we know the trails are, and potentially the bridges, but we know the trail is, we can use the gas tax as our percentage, at least for the trails, with no stacking rules applicable.
Okay, good, thanks. So there's no more questions, and I guess you've had your direction on how you're going to apply for those grants.
Yeah, I don't require a motion. It would be unusual to have a motion during the staff report, and I apologize for taking you down this road. But you know, the minutes will record that the consensus was to apply priority, and we'll just move on to the next one.
Yeah. And thanks, Councillor Book, for reminding me before I moved on. Okay, now we'll go to Article 10A, which is the flag policy. We've discussed that at the last meeting. We've had our first reading, and so I guess now we're okay to make a decision on that. Am I correct? Yes. So are there any discussion or comments on the policy? If there's none, we need a motion to approve the policy as it's presented. Moved by Councillor Bohr, seconded by Councillor Saulnier. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. Contrary minded, carried. The next one is workplace wellness. We've discussed that as well. And this is up for a decision as well. Any discussion on this one? If none, we need a motion to approve the policy as presented. Moved by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. If there's no questions on the motion, all in favor, signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. Items that changes to the traffic sign regulation, and it's letters to TIR for the request. And what this is there was a group of Acadian students, and they've been working on this for a while, trying to get the permission to erect bilingual stop signs in the Acadian regions. And there was regulations, of course, that needed to be changed by the Department of Transportation in order to get that done. Well, the changes have been done. The agreement, the permission is there. And there was a letter from the Minister of Acadian Affairs and Francophonie. And what they're saying is, we should, if we're interested in doing that in our municipality, we should let them know. And there's funding for that. The Municipal Affairs, Acadian Affairs have funding that they will give to pay for this changes if we want to go that way. But we have to decide as a council whether or not that is something that we want to do. And the reason they started that in Clare was because of the Congrès Mondial that's coming, and they felt that maybe it would be a good idea to have those signs that we can, to have it bilingual. And a lot of our signs are, a lot of our destination signs are, not all. In Clare, they're mostly bilingual or just French, but no other bilingual, I guess. So what we need here is to say, to see if we're interested in doing that in this region. Any discussion? Councillor Dignan.
I believe if it's of no cost to us, that we should be looking at doing it. We're a bilingual municipality. It's a county or municipality with a lot of Acadian and Acadian descent. And I believe it would be nice to see bilingual signs in the area.
Yes. Well,
That's my own opinion.
The letter reads that the change is a result of Acadian student. No, not the next paragraph. Your community has been identified as one with Acadian and French culture and history, or having landmark on or site that is of special interest to the Acadian community. Therefore, the Acadians Affair would like to extend the offer to fund the replacement of bilingual stop signs that are located on provincially owned roads in your community. Now, I take it as they will fund it.
Yeah.
So, to me, I see no problem with going with that, but they have to know. And the letter said while we are still working on details, they wanted this. They want this to assist in planning, and they wanted this as soon as possible. And that's first meeting we've had since this letter has been sent to me. So, go ahead.
Thank you. So would that require a motion or just general consensus?
I think we should have a motion.
Okay, I'd be willing to make that motion myself, that we get signed if the funding is available through the provincial government for that.
Okay, that's moved. Seconded by Councillor Doximo. Any discussion? Councillor Bork?
So my understanding, these are just stop signs, right?
Yes, yes.
So there was a project of changing the other signs all bilingual in our municipality as well at one time through CUPED there. So where's that at? Does anybody know?
I'm not sure. I know we have a number of signs that are bilingual, but not all of them are.
No.
And I think that came by, I don't know if it was at the last Congress that happened, but I remember that when signs would change, and I believe I might have been working with the department that when that request came. So I'm not sure exactly where we're at with that at this point. Does CAO, do you know any more on where that is with the rest of the signs?
Yeah, I can update council on that. So TIR has a policy that if you request that the signs be bilingual, that you can do that. We seem to be having a problem with signs regardless of language. There's quite a few signs that need to be replaced. Many of the signs have been translated, though the translation may not be exactly the way that CUPED would have desired. So if you have, for example, you have the Ditcher Road in Westport. So the translation of that would have been Chemin Ditcher Road, whereas perhaps the traditional name would have been Chemin Ditcha Road. So there are examples where the CUPED have requested a name change for a sign, but the people that actually live on that road did not want that name. And so the name changes to roads in those instances rely not on CUPED's will or ours. Actually, it's the community. So in some cases, it was just added a chemin. I'm positive that all of the changes that would have gone to TIR did not get changed. So what would have to happen is we'd have to do an inventory of the signs and the names of the roads and establish a plan of action for that. we don't have the resources to do that at this time, unless of course our GIS tech was to take that on. Though it would be something we'd have to collaborate with the province on. And also, yeah, and I'm noting that Jared has noted the fact that sometimes when you change names to roads, it has civic numbering change implications as well. So while certainly we can appreciate the fact that some of these signs really should say chemin, Ditcher Road, for instance, and I think a lot of them have changed, but not all of them have. And I think we can take this on as a project coming into Saint-Malvin at Cap as something of priority, depending on whether that's a priority of council.
Question on the motion.
Councillor Donaldson, did you say?
A question on the motion.
Okay. Councillor Surratt had a question. If we don't mind, we can go to Councillor Surratt first with his question.
No, that's okay.
Okay, so question has been called. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. Next one is Hope Dial-A-Ride. Yeah, Hope Dial-A-Ride. The Municipality of Argyle funding request, and what this is, and the letter came from what I could tell was from the Accessibility Committee, but there are a few people in our municipality that use Dial-A-Ride, Hope Dial-A-Ride on a regular basis. They the reason they have to go to the hospital either for dialysis or whatever, and they go 2 or 3 times a week. And so there's a request here to see if the municipality would fund the budget to cover these people that it's basically the only way they can get there, and I think there's a charge of $7 a way for people using Hope Dial-A-Ride. Now, what it is the amount is $4,368. That would be the annual cost to cover this portion of who uses that Hope Dial-A-Ride. Now, I don't know. I'm sure that hasn't been budgeted. I'm pretty sure. So I don't know what the council wants to do with this. Councillor Donaldson.
Is this the same way that the are allocated to the other riders in different municipalities, or is this just something they're asking Argyle to do?
That I cannot answer. I don't know. I only saw this part of it. So, Councillor,
I would be interested to know if it's targeted just Argyle, or if it's already something they're doing for 2 other municipalities. I see Ailey's on. Maybe she's got the answer.
Ailey has the answer. Go ahead, Ailey.
Sure, I just wanted to jump in, so thank you. This actually wasn't an ask from Hope. This is something that came out of the Accessibility Committee meeting, just with regards to those with mobility issues. So for instance, if you're not in a wheelchair and you have to get dialysis, there's no charge. But if you are in a wheelchair, it's $7 each way. So the Accessibility Committee spoke about this, and we as a committee feel that those that have mobility issues should be able to take the ride free as well without a cost to them. So we reached out to Gordon of Hope, and he advised that he has 2 regular residents of the Municipality of Argyle that need dialysis 3 times a week. So we wanted to bring this to council from the Accessibility Committee meeting to see if maybe it was something that we could help with, just to take an extra burden off of those folks. And it will be something that we're doing, the other municipalities are not, but it's something that we may start and encourage them to start as well. So.
Okay. I had understood that it didn't come from Hope. It came from the accessibility. That's what I had understood, so. Any discussion on that? Councillor Donaldson.
I believe if we agree to do this, maybe it should be like a regular invoice billed every so often. I don't know, monthly, quarterly, whatever, because that number is going to fluctuate by the number of users. And if it's, we want to put it as a policy that will cover that $7 charge instead of giving out a grant, I would be more comfortable with that. But that's just my opinion. There's 8 more there, I'm sure.
Right.
Thank
Any
you.
other discussion? Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I personally like to see us help them out in some way. But having said that, I'd like to ask our CAO, if I know we've had requests before for financial requests and stuff like that, and some of them wasn't meeting the guidelines or policies that we have in place. So I'd just like to make sure that we're not doing anything wrong or that we shouldn't be doing. But as far as helping them, I know some of the drivers for Hope. I know some of the clients that use Hope, and it's a great service. There's no saying it's not. It's a great service. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? So what's do we make a motion to do this? CO Muse, it's not a big burden on the budget, I take it, or is that something that we can handle?
Well, I think that it's well, I mean, it's not a large budget item. I think the only thing that, I mean, I think Councillor Donaldson's point is valid, that it should be based on the actual fee. So I think the idea is that we don't want, I think if you agree with this, is what you're basically agreeing to is to make sure that people in wheelchairs are treated equally to those that are not in a wheelchair. The $7 fee is because the wheelchair person requires additional help. So that's why they charge the fee, because they require an additional person to make it happen. So I would propose to Donaldson's point, some sort of monthly or quarterly billing based on actual use. And then at some point you'd have to review it again, because you don't know if it's going to be 2 people or 8 people suddenly, right? And so as our community is aging, we may want to find an alternative model. Right now, the way that it's working, it seems to be okay, but I think it's a commitment to review it after a period of time to see if it's working.
Okay. Yes. Councillor Surratt.
I think that with our accessibility committee, that's what the committee was set up for. They've come up with a proposal. I mean, they're a group that looked into this, and I think it's a great recommendation, and I certainly support it fully. And again, like our CEO said, down the road, if it happens to bring a huge burden on our budget, then we'd have to look at it again. But certainly to have, be sure we can have a look at it again. Thank you.
Councillor D'Entremont.
I guess we were talking about people going to the hospital for dialysis, but I'm assuming that there are other people in wheelchairs in our municipality that have different medical needs. So it would be to address not just those people, but anybody that is in a wheelchair. Is that correct? Just to be clear.
I would say yes, because they're the ones that pay, whereas anybody else, I don't believe there's a charge. I think they ask for donations when they bring anybody. I think it's a donation type
Okay.
system, but there's an actual charge if you're in a wheelchair.
So they charge a flat rate of $7. Doesn't matter if you're
Each way.
in Plymouth, right next to the
Yeah.
close to town as you can, or in Lower West Pimlico, it would be the same
Exactly.
rate. So,
As far as I know,
Okay.
that's what it is.
thank you.
So is anybody willing to make a motion on that? Okay, it's moved by Councillor Sonia, seconded by Councillor Surratt. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. And I take it that the motion is not just to give them a lump sum of the 43, whatever it was. It's for them to invoice on a monthly or quarterly or whatever for the amount that's been used for that period. Okay, good enough.
Staff will execute the motion to go directly to Hope and say, stop charging 7. And
Right.
charging us for the 7. And
Right.
we'll do for council is because, I think that it's intended to be this year because it's a non-budgeted item. So coming into next year's budget, we'll have to review.
Right, exactly. Okay, good enough. Thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
was there something on the flat policy on A, or did I miss something? Did we skip it, or are we gonna?
no, we passed it.
Was that?
We
We
passed
passed it
that.
off. I must have been asleep. Sorry about that. I missed it.
Request for decision, again here, letter of concern, lack of cellular service within parts of the municipality of Argyle as well as parts of a lot of areas. And it is a problem. I mean, there's businesses that they do most of their business either on internet and cell phones and and there's so many dead areas. You can have a community where part of the community is good, halfway in it's not, and then the other part is good. It's weird how it works. But I guess what we're looking for is to just so that staff can kind of make these providers aware of the problems that we have and see if there's any way that they can address this and try to bring that up so that it's, I guess cell phones maybe years ago wasn't that used and wasn't that essential, but I think it's becoming more and more essential. And people don't even have, they give up their landlines and operate on cell phones. So anyway, I guess what we're looking for is just to direct staff to yeah, go ahead, Councillor Surratt. Your time has run out.
I'm having trouble with my the mute button for some reason.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that at the garage at the Ultramar, for the last 4 years, that you're there with a business person, whether it be your rep from tire company or that, you're discussing about you have to call somebody to verify an order. You're there, then you have to move in the old car wash, outside in the parking lot, or at the pumps to get a connection. And it never used to be like that. And when our administration building was being built, I just asked myself, I wonder if it's only at the garage or if it was going to be other places. But I see with our last comments on that there are problems. And
Yes,
I just
there are
want to
problems.
touch base on that.
There's problems in that area for sure,
Yeah.
because I think at the insurance place right across the road, I hear there's a big problem there. I was in the office the other day and my phone rang, our new office, and I had to go outside. I just couldn't get the reception at all for some reason. Yeah, and I had to go outdoors. Councillor Albright.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention too, I know Quinnen has been mentioned here, but it's been an ongoing issue in Quinnen for a long time. And, you know, it's a little bit of a remote area, and it's not just about cell phone use and trying to call people, but especially for an emergency situation, that's what's really concerning out there. And I remember having a conversation with a senior at one time, and he lived alone, and he said, you know, I like to go for walks, but I realize I'm, you know, getting older, and if something happens to me and I have my cell phone on me, there's really no point even being able to use it. So it's you know, it's irritating to have drop calls and to not always have good cell service, but it's also it can be a matter of, you know, if I know I gave up my landline because we all have cell phones in our house, and in some cases way back in Quinnen, it's the same situation, and they're unable to use their cell phone in case of an emergency. So it's in this day and age, it's not it's a need. You know, it's not just a want anymore, and we really should do everything that we can to improve the cell service as much as we can. Thank you.
Right. East Kempville is in the same position as what Quinnen is, and I don't know if it's because it's in the same line there or what, but hardly any. You have to be at the perfect location in order to get a cell phone reception there. Councillor Boudreau, you have your hand up? No? Looks like it. Okay, anybody else? So we need a motion. The motion, suggested motion is council correspond with the cell phone service provider companies requesting that their attention to the issue of non-reliable cell phone service is in the key communities in Argyle, and that the CEO report the findings to council and residents. Moved by Councillor Bork, seconded by Councillor Albright. Any discussion? Yes, CAO.
Thank you, Warden. So the contact is probably going to be Bell, and I don't want to get into details of the service providers themselves, but they would be the primary. And we do have a contact through WSP, which we will take advantage of or utilize. I just want to mention that, you know, when service providers don't provide reliable service, there usually isn't a strong business case for that. So that's the reason why they don't do it, because if there was a business case, they would do it. So it may be a function of you as council, your role in the solution, and that role could be financial. Now, we don't know that now, obviously, but and there may just simply be an issue with that can be easily resolved. But I just want to point out to you that you know, we're starting with the letter, but what I expect is that we will get a response, and that response will be, well, actually, we need your help to solve the problem. So I don't want you to think that this is just a letter and then they go, oh, okay, that's cool. It may be more than that, so we may have another discussion. That's all.
Good. So we have a motion. I'm going to ask for the question, call for the question. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. I'm going to ask my deputy warden, can you take the next item? My computer is going dead here, and I'm going to have to go, and that one is basically what you know. It's about the Mariner Center anyway, so I'll just be a few minutes, but anyway, if you could take that while I go get my computer, make sure that I don't die here.
No problem. Yep. So there is an attachment of the terms of reference for the Mariner Center Expansion Steering Committee. So as you know, we had some subcommittees, and we kind of folded those subcommittees and made that one bigger committee. So because of that, we had to come up with a new terms of reference. And as CAO News mentioned, one of the pieces of this is, because I am the chair, the administrative part of that is that we have Kim, who's helping out with helping set the agenda, getting the meetings, the links out, all those kinds of things, taking notes. That's one of the things, but the terms of reference are there. We need to pass this basically in order for our committee to be functional. So Are there any questions on the terms of reference? Was there anything that wasn't clear that you had any questions about? Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. Just reading over some of the terms of reference and stuff like that. One thing I do have a little bit of concern over, I guess, and I'm all for the committee that's working on this. By all means, I'm behind them 100%. But at the same time, there's 3 councillors out of each municipality and the town that's working on it. I've asked to be, if some councillors don't have nothing going on a day and they'd like to sit in on these meetings, I feel as though we should be allowed to sit in on these meetings. I know as councillors, we've been elected to make decisions on behalf of the people we represent. And in order to do that, I feel as though we have to be making informed decisions without as much information that we can have to go on. And I know I tried sitting in on a couple of them, and we'd get the notice an hour or so before the meeting, or when we get into the meeting, all of a sudden we were put out because it had to go on camera. But at the same time, when we took our oath, and that was part of our oath, that when we're taking going in camera, and that we know we're not allowed to go out and to talk to people around about it or whatever. We went down this road before in the group of 9 that was there before, and it took us getting advice from Halifax saying that yes, we are able to sit in on these meetings. And it is a sore point on with me. There's no saying it's not. I just feel as though we're a council that promotes transparency. We want to be transparent, and that, but at the same time, when a committee or 3 of the councillors from 9 sit in on a committee and we can't be transparent amongst ourselves, there's something wrong there. That's my own personal opinion, but I'd like to find out if we are allowed to sit in at these meetings as spectators or not, and as people representing, as councillors representing our people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first of all, I try to send out the link, and sometimes it is late because the agenda changes. Sometimes the agenda changes up to an hour before the meeting. So we try to save that last link, the most current link, so that you have all the attachments. But know that every meeting it's Wednesday and it's at 3 o'clock. So if you don't get a link and you want it earlier, just remind me and I will send it. So that's number 1. Number 2, we are looking into, we've consulted legal for your question around the in-camera and whether or not, so if you choose to participate in that meeting, you're right. As soon as we go in camera, you're getting booted out because you're not on that committee. But we brought that up at our last meeting, I believe it was, whether or not we are able to keep our councillors in on that discussion, because you're absolutely right. You have as much right to hear that conversation as the people on that committee. So we have consulted legal, and I think we still need a little more clarification around that. CAO Muse, I'm not sure if you got any more clarification around that.
I think I'm comfortable sharing with this council, and then of course, again, at the Mariner Center expansion, that you would, I mean, the question is whether or not you would be bound by the MGA and the oath that you took from at the council level on a subcommittee that you're not a member of. Okay, so that's the thing. Like, it's not that, it's not that anybody wants an elected official, doesn't want an elected official in an in-camera conversation. It's what does it actually mean? So at the end of the day, it looks like, from a legal perspective, from the question I asked, is that the answer is that the in-camera, that you would be accountable to the MGA, even if you're a non-member of the committee. Now, the legal advice, the legal advisor is certainly asking, like, what he wants to clarify what the purpose is of that. And so that we're still working that out. Okay. So That's to be reported to that subcommittee. Now, I have just as a couple of items here. So Kim now is the recorder. So I will be instructing Kim to send the dates of the next meetings that were established as soon as that is established. So you won't get the agenda right away, but as a council, you'll know that in a week's time we're supposed to meet, okay? And the time. Now, for those of you who catch the invites at the last minute, I would suggest that you can always go to the Facebook site or on the Mariner Center. So if you can't make a meeting on that day, I mean, you're not a participant of the meeting, so you're not actually speaking in the meeting, but you can actually go and review or watch those meetings. So yes, sometimes these things come at the last minute, but I want to assure you that is transparent, not just to you, but to the public. Obviously the in-camera is not part of that meeting. So your point, Councillor Digdon, on in-camera is still valid based on what is put up. So we hope to share that information with the Mariner Center subcommittee at their next meeting. And I can also say that it was Councillor Surratt that raised that issue, I suspect on behalf of a couple of councillors. And the discussion was very positive towards, like, it was aimed towards making it transparent. I just want to make sure that you're aware that your concerns were heard at that committee level.
Thank you. Councillor Sonia?
Thank you. I've had the same concerns as Glenn, and I think when I was sitting down in the meeting, I was there 20 minutes, and all of a sudden we're in camera, and I kind of said to myself, "What the hell? What's the point?" So, we did take an oath to Glenn's point, and I totally agree with what he said, and I think we're bound by that oath if we're sitting on any council meeting. Now, technically, maybe we're not, but I can't see why we wouldn't be. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you. That is going to be an agenda item at the next meeting. So we're hoping that we will have the clarity that we need to make that decision. But as CEO Mew said, the councillors sitting around that table felt like you should be able to be part of that conversation. As long as there was one councillor who brought up, as long as legally it's okay. So that's why we consulted legal. Okay. Anyone else? Go ahead, Glenn.
I was just gonna, no, the only thing I was gonna say, because if this does go ahead, and if the people that we represent want it to go ahead, this is gonna be a major expense for a long time. And I just like to have as much information as I can have to give the people at the right time, when and if we can, and if we're allowed. And thank you. That's all I can say is thank you. And the only other thing I should say, though, I know I'm not the only one, nor is Mr. Saunier. There's councillors from the town thinking the same way, and there's councillors from the Municipality of Yarmouth thinking the same way. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else? Okay, seeing nothing else, we do need a motion to approve the terms of reference as they are. Is there somebody who's willing to make that motion? Thank you, Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Surratt. Okay, is there any other questions or discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Warden.
No problem.
I don't see it's not going up, but it's staying at the percentage. It was going to go dead. Okay, the next item is the request for Glenwood Park and Parc des Jeunes Playground, and there's attachments, 2-page attachment on. Okay, department set aside. Okay, the Recreation Department they set aside funds in the past for recreation capital projects, and the operating reserve currently has about 45,000 set aside for this very purpose. The department successfully obtained almost 20,000 for both projects, and the approval for the use of up to 10,000 of funds in the operating reserve, that was a recommendation that council approved to cover the additional costs. I guess we didn't get the full amount that was applied for. So I'm just wondering if I'm thinking that we need a little more than what we had originally approved, because the motion says that move that transfer 10,000 from the operating reserve to support the improvements to the Park des Jeunes facility and accessible floating dock located at Glenwood Park. Now, am I correct? Is that an extra 10,000 because we'd already approved? Oh no, we hadn't approved it. That's just what we're approving now, the 10,000 that you had recommended. Is that correct, CAO?
I'm asking for another 10 to come from reserve because what we hoped to get from accessibility, we did not get in it. But we did get some.
Yes.
We were looking for 22, we got 15. So
why? So that's an extra 10 from what was approved before, because
that is correct.
There's 10 in the budget.
Is
that correct?
We budgeted 22 from the province. We got 15.
Okay, that's it. So I guess what we need is an extra 10 from the operating reserve to support the improvements for these two projects.
And I recognize that 22 minus 15 is not 10.
But
I also recognize there might be some COVID related things that we have to consider here.
That's right, exactly. Any discussion on that?
I'll make the motion.
I think Donaldson had hand up. Discussion or motion?
Nicole's motion will stand as she rated, I assume, and I will just say, I was going to make it, but I'll second that motion.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. You never know when someone has a hand up if they want to discuss or if they want to move.
And now it's seconded, everybody can discuss it.
That's right. So any more discussions? Councillor Digdon.
Only thing I was gonna say, I know all the departments are doing great work in our municipality, but the recreation department, you hear of them doing a lot of work, a lot of good work all throughout the municipality. So just gonna put a little plug in for them this evening. That's all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it has been easy with COVID.
And it has been easy.
Yet they've been able to come up with programs that people could enjoy regardless of the situation we were in, for sure. It wasn't an easy task, but they managed. So it's been moved and seconded. Councillor Dalziel.
I just think this is a great opportunity for, to help out the resident in our own municipality, projects in our own municipality, used by our own people. It's a great project. I think it's win-win, and for the amount of money that we have in the operating reserves, it's, to me, this is an easy sell of that. Thank you.
Anybody else? CL Muse.
Just note that the money is from accessibility program, provincial accessibility program. So the floating dock allows for people to access the water if they're gonna, do canoe, whatever. So that's the accessibility. Park des Jeunes work is going to be to allow for accessible access. So the recommendations coming from the accessibility committee, this is the second decision that you've made today that supports some of the recommendations coming out of there. So before even the report was finalized, you've agreed to do two things. So
yes.
And thank you, Councillor Digdon. The rec department is very passionate indeed about that.
Okay.
Question on the motion.
Okay, all in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. The next one is the wastewater operator job posting. We're getting more and more work. we have some of our employees that are getting close to retirement. So I guess there's a request here to post for a position for an employee to work with the on the wastewater projects, or not the projects, but the wastewater facilities that we have. And there's an attachment here. I guess the CEO was asking to be authorized to fill a second full-time position of wastewater operator with the principal responsibility to be in West Pubnico. Any discussion? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Digdon.
You're right on. You watch me on mute and you're good. Just wondering, do you want a motion on that for that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sort of working tonight here with two phones. Okay, I'd make a motion that the municipality look for a second wastewater operator.
Okay,
Seconded.
moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Donaldson.
There, you mentioned earlier it was because of people were getting ready to retire. Is this going to be the transition from the current one, or is this going to be a permanent two-person position indefinitely?
The long-term plan, good question, Councillor. Long-term plan is we expect the training to take at least a year, if not more, depending on how successful this person would be with the operator in training and level 1 training. The position would be primarily in West Pubnico and would allow for the current person to retire without having to worry about waking up every hour wondering what things going off. And so what we envision is that once this person decides to retire, he may have the option to go part-time and be an on-call replacement, because he, he's certainly fully trained, and we don't expect two people to work there long-term, but I would hope that the current wastewater operator would provide some assistance now and into the future after his retirement. So, the reality is that our wastewater operations across the municipality is growing. We're going to double the amount of Westport in a year. So we cannot rely on our level 1 operators in Tuscott and Westport to back up Pubnico. It's just too much work now. So, and this is such a specialty training that we want to make sure that we have the appropriate people and trained appropriately to do it right. I would only say one last thing about it. The process in West Pubnico has gotten a little bit more complex because of the dewatering equipment. So we're learning how to use that, and that has been just a tremendous success for us so far. So we're hoping with the 1 or 2 years that it might take, and it may be longer. So obviously we're committed to supporting them both, and supporting Vaughn when he's ready to retire.
Councillor D'Entremont.
And I'm assuming that's coming out of the West Pubnico budget. How's that going to work?
Yes, it would have to come out of West Pubnico operations. We are expecting some savings this year. We will be bringing this to the attention of the committee. I want to make that clear. I felt like it needed council's permission first before I could speak on council. But we will be moving fairly aggressively on this, hopefully with the blessing of the committee. There's a budget surplus, accumulated surplus there, so I'm not concerned about budget overages this year. By the time we replace the position and get things going, I don't think it'll have a tremendous impact on the budget this year, but next year we'll obviously have to factor it in.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Surratt, you had your hand up.
Councillor Donaldson and Councillor D'Entremont hit it right on. That was my two questions.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. The next one is our summer meetings. As you know, we usually suspend the meetings that we have in the summer. We don't usually have any meetings in July and August. And I guess what we're looking at is to do the same thing for this summer. I know we've had one now, but even if we don't schedule any meetings on those 2 months, there's always the chance that we will be having meetings if something comes up. We don't let things just fall behind. If there needs to be a meeting, then we have one. So, but I guess we need a motion to say that we won't be having any more meetings as of now until September. Moved by Glenn. Or no, question? No, moved. Seconder? Seconded by Councillor Bork. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. Correspondence, we have one. 11A is refurbishment of the Tusket Falls main dam. There were letters, I don't know, there were letters that were sent to residences now. I don't know if that went right through the municipality, but I know their plans are to start lowering the lake and what they call to its natural level. Now, they're going to have some archaeologists that are going to be working there. And to me, that means that probably that lake is going to be dry like they've done before, because they can't do the archaeology work unless it is. And I know there's a company that's been hired. So that's supposed to take place. Like I said, the letter states that they will start lowering the lake by starting on July 26th. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I expect it's going to be a while because there's still quite a bit of work to be done there. The other one is Western Counties Regional Library Annual Report. And another one is their newsletter, Regional Library newsletter. And the Western Wren, their annual report. And YCCHB, Report to Community 2020-21. That's the, let's see. Okay, health plans, okay. No, I thought it was something else. So that's another report that we've had. If there's any questions, or comments on any of those? Seeing none, we'll continue on to financial requests. We have District Community Grant request of 500, Green Grove Cemetery Association. And that would be Councillor Donaldson. Need a motion to, okay, there he is. You move, yep, moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Dotremo. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. The other one is Immaculate Conception Cemetery Committee. And I think that is Councillor Bork, moved by Councillor Bork, seconded by Councillor Digdon. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded. C is Laura Hill Cemetery. That is also Councillor Bork, moved by Councillor Brooke, seconded by Councillor Albright. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. New Horizons Historical Seaside Park Association grant for $500, and that is through Councillor Donaldson. Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Docherman. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. $500 West Pubnico Firefighters Club. That's from Councillor Digdon, moved by Councillor Digdon, seconded by Councillor Docherman. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary minded, carried. And the last one, Nouveau Horizons, the Nouveau Horizon de la Baronnie. And that's Councillor Digdon again, and moved by Councillor Digdon, seconded by Councillor Surratt. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary-minded, carried. And that's what we have for financial requests. We're down to agenda topics for next meeting or notice of motion by councillor. CL Muse.
I know typically notice of motions come from councillors, but one of the items that Councillor Surratt raised was the new portco. I would suggest that at a future council meeting, we will be discussing what Argyle's role is on that particular piece. Just wanted to raise that will be brought to, really? Can't hear me?
There, we could hardly hear you.
Really?
Oh,
That better?
much better.
I could see people doing weird things, and I was like, "What's going on? Is this like charades? Like, what is?" Just say that we should be on a future council meeting. I know it won't be a notice by a councillor. We will be bringing the new portco topic to
Exactly.
that the Industrial Commission is going through the process. I think the Industrial Commission needs to know Argyle's position on the future of that. So
I think so.
future meeting. I mean, this is a process. It's going to take some time. It may not be August. Like we usually we may meet once in August, even if we just said we wouldn't. But it may be September before we can get that information to you.
Yeah. But we know that if anything comes up, if something was to come up like that, we just call a meeting, you know.
Absolutely.
We do, for sure. Question period. Any questions online?
No questions online. Somebody suggested that we buy a cell booster from TriStar to improve our cell service at our office, and I would only say been there, done that, got the invoice. So
There you go.
yeah.
So does it work?
Oh, yeah, it does. it works. It does improve. It does improve. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't tried my cell phone in every room, but
Okay,
it has.
yeah. I was in the kitchen, and we were ready to leave, and my phone rang, and I lost. I heard right away, then I lost. But then he called me right back, and I'm wondering if maybe he lost it. Maybe it's where he was that I lost it, for sure. Anyway, that's good. So if there's no questions, there's no in camera, and we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Was that an adjournment, Councillor Donaldson, or a question?
An adjournment.
Seconded by Councillor Bork. Okay, thank you very much.